Hi, Craig. Hi, Perry. Welcome.
Hey, this is Craig. Sorry. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. So glad that you were able to make it this afternoon, morning, wherever you are. Where are you calling in from?
I'm on the East Coast. I'm in Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay.
How about you? Where are you?
I'm right now in my home in New Jersey.
Oh,
Yeah, but I live about 20 minutes outside of New York. So generally, if I'm working, I'm heading that way. Hi, Perry. Hi, Christopher.
Okay, so in about a minute, I'll turn on the captioning.
Great. I see we're at 12:30, so I can get started. I'll give it till 12:31. Hey, Tom. Hey, Daniel. We got to meet last time. I see Jonathan. He was with us yesterday.
Sorry, I couldn't join you yesterday. I had hoped to, but apologies.
So it's okay. It was a great presentation by my colleague Emma, and if you do have a chance, I think there is a recording of it somewhere. So hopefully, you could start thinking about where you are in the tech adoption stratosphere.
Hi, Valerie.
Hi, Jonathan.
Hey.
It's nice to see you again.
Hey, John.
Hey,
Long time no
Dan.
see.
Exactly.
So how about I get started? I am actually going to be on. So this is about a very high level 15-minute demonstration of Litera Transact. But what I'm going to do is make myself available for about 15 minutes after the demonstration to answer any questions, talk tech. If you have any questions about your specific workflow and what that would look like on the platform, I could jump back in and show you what that would look like. And I certainly hope that this is, a conversation more than a demo, because I think that getting color from how you typically run your deals is always very helpful to really see the value in a tool like Transact. So I'm here to talk about Litera Transact, which is a transaction management workflow solution, meaning that it has functionality to streamline your workflow from the entire deal lifecycle. We think about it, we have a data room for your due diligence, a closing checklist management function. We automate most of the signature process, and then we also automate the closing book process. So essentially, we have about 4 core objectives, and I feel like there we go. So we have about 4 core objectives. The first is to enhance collaboration. Essentially, when you're running a deal, you're working through all different modes of communication, whether that be status calls, your status call notes, your emails, notes in your DMS, maybe even you have comments to your documents. And we wanted to find a place where we can actually put that all together so that it all lives in one spot, nothing slipping through the cracks. I'm going to show you the platform, but you can see that you can actually just use the tool internally. A lot of our teams actually get started using it just internally, but where you're going to see the most value of the tools when you start inviting external collaborators, such as the client for transparency or other deal teams. Also to increase profitability. I was a former practicing lawyer. I was actually a born and bred insurance litigator. And I know, how close those margins are. There's so many times I've been on the receiving end of a bill that was just had the poison pen. And so we wanted to be able to reduce the amount of time spent on the type of work that really can't be, billed for, or can be, but it's going to be written off. So you're going to see a lot of those administrative tasks that are required to close your deal are going to be automated in the system. And so that lawyers are going to actually spend more time focusing on the things that really matter to the client and that are going to make them better at what they do, that they're going to add more value. Another core objective is that we mitigate risk. When we run our deal, we want to be able to operate in a more collaborative and secure software. As I mentioned before, we use so many different modalities of communication. When everything's all in one place, it's able to be more secure. So you don't have to worry about things like phishing scams or hacking scams. We all know that M&A lawyers have big targets on their back. I think there was about 2016, there was a hacking by certain Chinese individuals that actually hacked into a large M&A partner's email and got a lot of information that otherwise shouldn't have gotten disseminated. So here, when you're working in one spot, keeps it there a lot more safer. When we also think about mitigating risk, it's that risk of human error. It's, signature pages that maybe were inadvertently excluded from a signature packet, or not properly dating the documents, not repurposing the documents, removing information that shouldn't have been in that particular document. And the last is to impress your clients. At the end of the day, we are all in the client service industry, and really technology should be a client service, and Litera Transact is. As I mentioned before, you can actually invite the client, and they have a portal where they can see the entire status of their deals in real time. But even if you don't want to invite the client, the export functionalities that we have, the ability to call the status of the deal in real time so that you can spend less time preparing for status calls and more time educating the client. It's going to impact the way that you relate to your client. It's going to better tighten that client relationship. So as I get through Transact, I'm going to ask you to take a step back and really think about your workflow. When I practiced law, workflow was something that I had personally given very little thought to. But I knew that there was a better way of doing things. I knew that a lot of the tasks that I was doing, a lot of the administrative tasks that I was doing just to do my job, didn't need to be done. And I knew that my clients deserved better. I certainly, in good faith, couldn't bill for the time spent preparing tables of contents or copying documents. I wanted to be part of that solution. And so that's why I joined Litera Transact and Litera back in November. But for today's purposes, I want you to think about your own workflow. How is it that you run your checklist process? How is it that you're communicating with other deal parties? How are you managing the versions and tracking the versions of different documents? How are you running your signature process? Who on your team is creating those signature packets? How are you creating your signature pages? And then how are you executing your closing books? And here's just some really nice things that some of our partners have said about Litera Transact. But as you can see, it really reduces the amount of time spent on administrative work so that you can actually take on more work, more valuable, more billable work. And also just, having better transparency into the deal, really being able to manage your deal and all the moving pieces that need to occur for that deal to close. And so with that, I'd like to share my screen. Can everyone see that? Yes, no, thumbs up? Great.
Can you
So
make
I'm
it a
gonna
little bigger, Valerie?
Yeah. So I'm actually going to walk you through a deal start to finish on Litera Transact. One thing I want you to note as you're thinking about your own bespoke workflow is that you actually don't have to use Transact for your entire deal. That's where you're going to see the most value, but you can actually run your deal. Maybe you just want to use it for checklist functionality or just signatures or just closing books. I'm going to show you what a deal would look like start to finish. I'm not going to cover the data room today, but I just want to flag for you that we do also have that functionality as well. What you're looking at right now is our checklist. think of this really as a virtual replica of the type of checklist that you're used to working on, where it identifies all the deliverables of your deal that need to occur. Now, I know that it looks a little bit different, and some of the feedback that we've got is that the clients find this to be a lot more easily digestible than the type of checklist that maybe has additional columns and additional information that may be of less importance to the client. You're probably wondering, do I need to work on a checklist that, that I've created outside of the system if I'm using Transact? And the answer to that's no. We do have an export functionality where you can actually export this into a Word document. I like to think of this as your 30,000 foot view, but we've made this much more digestible than, say, if you were working on a Word document or an Excel document. Whereas you actually can flag this by, filtering it by status. You can also filter it by the assigned party, so you know where, whose ball the court is in as you're running your entire deal. Getting started in Litera Transact is really simple. We have a lot of industry accepted deal templates already embedded into the system, but we also can use essentially a copy and paste functionality to take all of your precedent checklists and put them in Transact, and then you can save them for future use. Also, we have a cloning functionality, and this is great. We see this a lot in the ECVC space where you're doing a lot of series financings. You have a lot of those wash, rinse, and repeat deals, and that's just going to carry over more information. But the thing that makes the Transact checklist especially special is what I like to think of as that 1-inch view. And now this is something that really can't be achieved when you're running through a deal. Typically, you're taking your checklist and you're cross-referencing it with all the documents in your iManage or your NetDocs or whatever DMS system that you're using. Or maybe you're also using it to cross-reference with your emails, making sure that you have the most recent version of a document. Here you can actually append all the documents referenced in your checklist directly into Transact. Now, it's not meant to be an editing document. It's not meant to be a replacement for your DMS. It's really meant to be a spot where you can come in and you can review all the versions of those documents. You can even run comparisons of those documents directly in the system. And what we have embedded into our tool is our Workshare compare tool, which not only provides a nice red line version, it also provides that executive summary of all the changes that were made. So it's going to further provide efficiencies in how you review your documents and review the changes to your documents. So typically when you're running your checklist, you're having someone that has to run point, updating the checklist as people are working through all the documents. And the problem with that is as someone's updating the checklist and taking the time to do that, everyone's still working on the deliverables that they need to work on simultaneously to the checklist being updated. So as you can imagine, as soon as that document's created and circulated, it's automatically out of date. So with Transact, you can actually flag the status of each item on your checklist as you're working through it. So you have a checklist that's continually up to date. So you can come in here and you can see the status of your deal in real time. One thing that I want to show you is our variables functionality. And this is not Transact is not really a deal is not really a deal drafting tool, but there are certain aspects of repurposing documents, dating documents that are so integral to the workflow that we wanted to create efficiencies around that. So here you can actually put those variable language that you have in your documents. You can put the curly brackets around it, and the system's going to recognize all those variables. It's going to tell you where those variables are. And then you can simply replace those variables in one spot instead of having to open up 50, 60 documents and run a find and replace on each and every one of those variables. I want to now move on to the signature process. So with the checklist, we see that you have enhanced transparency, enhanced collaboration. The signature process is where you're going to see a lot more of that automation. Just want to show you what you're looking at here is our signature matrix. This identifies all the signers on your deal. And here's all the documents that require a signature. And here we also have a DocuSign integration. We also have the ability to send out your documents for manual signature. The DocuSign integration actually reduces that step of having to take all of your signature packets, upload it to DocuSign, and then run all the tabbing. You can just do that automatically with Transact. Very high level. And now our signature process has a lot of customizability. We could talk a little bit more about how we partner with all of our firms to figure out what the best workflow in the system through the use of our transaction advisors. I'm actually part of that team. but I just wanted to show you the workflow. The first step would be identifying your universe of signers. We want to create efficiencies in the tool. The more that you use it, the more time savings you're going to find. You can import signer information from prior deals. One of the keys of actually using this portal here is it's going to create your signature blocks for you. And if you have any edits to signature blocks, say you're on the eve of closing, and you find out that the COO, not the CEO, is going to be signing all the documents for your client, you can make that change in one spot here. It's going to populate all the documents that party needs to sign. Excuse me. Once you've identified your signers, then all you have to do is just assign your signers to the documents that they're signing. And then Transact will actually create your signature pages for you. We have AI embedded in the system that's going to recognize the name of the document. It's going to make a suggested template. But all of the templates that we have in the system, you can change your template, can all be edited to suit your needs. One question that we get is, can we still use the signature pages that are in the documents already? And the answer to that's yes. We just use what we like to call our custom page workflow, where essentially you just choose the page from the document and then you just identify where that party is signing. And then I'm going to go back to that tracking matrix. One of the biggest time savers of Transact is that it's actually going to create your signature packets for you automatically. All you have to tell the tool is who is signing what, and then those packets are created. Let me show you what one of those looks like. So you can see here for Mr. Cisco, here's all the documents that he needs to, all the pages he needs to sign. And at the bottom of each page has a QR code. That QR code's unique to the signer in the document. That's then going to facilitate the process of matching those pages back to their documents. So no longer do you need to use the PDF editor to break apart all of your documents, only to create those standalone signature pages, only to send them out through your email, receive them back through email, and then reverse engineer the entire signature packet process to create final collated documents. Transact's going to do all of that for you. As I mentioned before, you can send that out through DocuSign. Those pages are actually never going to hit your inbox. They're going to come back directly through Transact. And the same if you send your documents directly from the system. As I mentioned before, we have a lot of different ways you can run your signature process. Sending out your documents can actually be achieved through a myriad of ways. The most simplified way is actually just sending out your signature packets directly from Transact. Regardless of the way that you send it, because we use that QR code technology, it's going to advise the entire status of your signature process here. Unlike your checklist, all of these signature tags actually update automatically as you're working through it. There's simply just zero onboarding to this process. It's all value. And then once you receive all of your documents signed, then you just come into this portal here, and simply with the click of a button, you're able to collate your documents. As I mentioned before, that matching process happens automatically. Then once you've collated all of your documents, they're going to live in your checklist as that final draft version. And then it's going to be pulled through when you're ready to create your closing book. Just to show you what that looks like here, we have all different formats that you can use. I know that this is something generally that's client driven, and we want to be able to deliver for the client. I'm just going to show you the single PDF of all documents. I like that because it's automatically hyperlinked and bookmarked, so it makes it a very easy to navigate work product. Here you can add a client branded or firm branded cover page. But really where you're going to see the time savings is from our table of contents builder. What this does, it essentially takes the structure of your checklist and naming conventions in your checklist. It's going to pull through only the final draft versions of the documents in your checklist. So anything in your checklist that was just a task that didn't have a document appended to it, it's going to be removed from here. And now I can start to create the bespoke closing book for each party that I need to create a closing book for. I could simply remove documents. If I move documents around, my tabbing is going to update automatically. And then once I have a closing book that has the naming conventions that I want, I could actually edit the names here. And I simply just create a closing book. And then I can create a closing book really in just a matter of minutes. Whereas I know that's generally a process that can take hours, if not weeks. We had one party that once, one customer that once mentioned that he wasn't even providing closing books to his client unless they asked 3 times, because it was just that much of an administrative undertaking. Here, you're able to provide what the client wants immediately. And I'm just going to show you briefly what that looks like. And as I mentioned, also the table of contents is also hyperlinked. So it's just a really nice presentation and easy to navigate. So with that, I gave you a very high level overview of what Transact can do. As I mentioned before, you can use it piecemeal. I'm not part of the sales detail. I'm part of the adoption detail. I was a former practicing lawyer for 10 years. I'm part of a team of all former practicing lawyers. We really think of ourselves as that third arm of the deal team. We understand all of the client pressures. We understand all the workflows. We're exposed to even more workflows than you can even imagine. And so what we do is we understand what it is that our teams need to achieve. And we relieve all of the decision fatigue that comes with approaching new tech. This is not your standard plug and play tech. This is a tech that has a lot of functionality. So we essentially set them up for success. We show them how they should run that. We train them only on what it is that they're going to need to know. And then we just provide a level of support that really is kind of unseen in the industry, because we realize that any workflow tool really needs that type of support. So with that, does anyone have any questions?
I have a question, Valerie. On the default templates that you have, is there a robust list of, documents, and how are they prepared or vetted by Litera? If you could answer that.
So we actually, our templates don't include draft documents. We're not in the business of providing work product, but we do have industry accepted templates that can be, that kind of span all different deal types. We have a list of those embedded in our help and support channel, so you could take a look at those templates, all of which can be edited to suit your needs and saved. You can also start from scratch. So if you have a lot of precedent precedent deal checklists that you want to get into the system, we can show you how easy it is to do that, and then they could be saved for future use.
Hey, Valerie, this is Jeannie Fry. This is a really interesting product. My background is in healthcare and M&A, and I'm currently Chief Legal Officer and General Counsel for a healthcare system. We do a lot of very common smaller transactions, such as physician practice acquisitions with standard templates and forms. Do you have many in-house legal departments using this product?
We do. We see both in-house and outside counsel using the tool. I will say right now we're seeing a little bit more use from our outside counsel, but I'm seeing a trend of just in-house counsel starting to kind of run a little bit more self-sufficiently. And I think that this is a tool that's really going to support that use case. But we do see from both.
Yeah, that's what it looks like, and I love the making it easier than DocuSign. The signature function looks very robust. So congratulations on a very interesting product, and we'll be interested in hearing more about it, I think.
Great, thank you. And what I can do in the chat is just leave my email so that if anyone had any questions, after today, or wanted to have more conversation around the tool, I'd be very happy to do that. Oh, and I see some questions too in the chat.
Valerie, this is Jonathan. If I can ask a quick question, I'm
Sure.
super interested and find a lot of it compelling. I agree with what Jeannie just said about the elevated functionality from DocuSign. I do a lot of smaller deals, and we're a smaller firm. Do you have any, I guess my question is, what kind of models do you have for pricing? Is it a one-size-fits-all model? Do you have a version that is geared towards smaller practices and smaller firms? Do you price by the attorney? How does that all work?
So it is a so I'm actually not really generally part of those conversations. We do have a pricing model that actually is advantageous really for our customer. We have clients that span different budgets and different sizes of firm, all the way from solo practitioners through those enterprise law firms. It is a per deal model, just kind of a guesstimate of the deals. If you run over that, even better, we can revisit that conversation next year. There's certainly no overage charges. And then with that, we have really just a very high level of service. We partner with all of our firms to provide all the onboarding and training that's needed. When we see that that's something that's especially needed from some of our smaller firms who are, a little bit less resourced than, our larger firms. But we can absolutely I'd be very happy to take this offline and get a better sense for your deal count and what that pricing would look like for you.
Great.
So I see one of the questions here is about recording and reflecting sign off by both sides of a transaction that a document is final and ready for execution. And the answer to that is yes, we do have an approvals functionality. Today was a very high level demo, but we actually fairly recently rolled out an approvals function where essentially you can send a request for a particular party to sign off on a document, so that then you can take all of those signature pages out of escrow and collate your final draft document. But then you have a nice audit trail of all of this sign off, as opposed to multiple emails, giving the sign off. Oh,
Question for
thumbs up,
Julia.
Gary.
Question for Julia, which is, Julia, was this recorded? And if so, how would we find a recording if we want to show other people the demo?
Thanks, Daniel. Yes, it's recorded, and I will send it to you, and we'll also post it on materials for the meeting. Good question.
Thanks. And just to say, Valerie, I think this is an amazing system. I chair the technology and M&A subcommittee within M&A, and we actually had a demonstration of this a number of years ago when it was Doxley.
Yep.
So one of the Doxley founders is very active in our committee. Was at Wilson Sonsini, and she built it the way an M&A lawyer would build it, and that's how it's ended up as it is. So you should be very proud of it.
Yes, and I am also very proud of Haley and all the work that she does, not only for Doxley and Litera, but the work that she does on your subcommittee.
Thank you.
So this may be this, Jim. Hi, Valerie. This was a great presentation. I had it on a smaller screen, so I couldn't see it as well as I might have liked. So Julia, if you're sending it to Daniel, do me a favor and send it to me as well, and I'll put it up on a bigger screen. But in practice, who would typically utilize the system? So for example, would it be, and this may be part of the training, would it be more the junior associate or paralegal, or the senior associate junior partner, or what, how would this be most efficiently used, I guess, both in a firm context, or a medium-sized firm, or an in-house context? Would Jeannie be using it herself, for example, or would one of her team be more likely to get the most value out of it?
So the first step whenever anyone's approaching a workflow solution is to understand your current workflow. And part of that understanding is who's doing what. And then we don't want to create a situation where people are approaching Transact doing work that they typically wouldn't have been doing anyway. We want to be able to take things off of their plate. So essentially, it really depends on how our deal teams are set up. I think that getting started really is kind of a one-size-fits-one exercise where we're just understanding who's doing what. Sometimes we have partners that are the ones really running point. Maybe their teams are operating a little bit more leanly, in which case they're going to be using the tool in ways that, maybe at a more enterprise law firm, where it's some back end channel or resources that are doing all the signature packets and signature management. We're going to teach that team how to do that, and they're going to be the ones doing it.
So if I could follow up with a related question.
Sure.
So you're talking about partners and associates, like those are the only two categories of people.
And it's not, yes.
So in British firms, we're starting to see now a category called project managers, and they are running systems like this. There's another similar one I won't mention. Are you seeing that in the States? Are law firms hiring project managers that run deals using this kind of software?
Increasingly. So Daniel, I think it is no secret that when it comes to legal technology, the UK is just a little bit more advanced in that regard. And I think that's, because of the Legal Businesses Services Act, there's, they're starting to operate a little bit more like traditional businesses because of the ability to have ownership, non-lawyer ownership and investment. So that's a big part of the reason why the UK is kind of always a little bit ahead of the curve, but we're getting there. We're actually starting to see, I know that the model rules are changing, and we're having, out of Utah and Arizona, having the same structure of non-lawyer ownership. So law firms are starting to be tasked with operating a little bit more like traditional businesses. And this is creating those new roles of project managers, or what we call allied professionals within the ecosystem of the law firm. In which case it is those people that we're partnering with to teach them maybe not how to do everything in the tool, but at least a lot of the project management function. So one of the things I didn't get to show you is we have the ability to assign different specific users to different items in the checklist. Something that you don't really, you wouldn't really put in a circulation copy of your checklist. Maybe you would have that on an internal copy. So it does have a lot of project management functionality. So even if it's not a person that's designated to do that, you know, a lot of times where the firms don't have that particular role, you know, it's a senior associate that's tasked with running, kind of running point and managing all the juniors. They're the ones that see the value from that.
Yeah, well, I would say senior associates are expensive. And one of the advantages of using these non-legal project managers is people don't pay them as much. It's much more profitable, much more efficient. Get the lawyers using their brains to think about deal points rather than turning process. Yeah.
And to that point, though, the senior associates then are in the position where they're able to actually focus on being good lawyers or generating business and being, you know, more of a value add than they would be if they were just kind of being the puppet master for a bunch of junior associates, paralegals, legal admins running a deal.
Yeah.
Does anyone else have any questions?
I'd just say this is really great. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you so much.
And Valerie, just make sure to post your email address so we can get in touch with you.
Yeah, I pasted. Oh, I think I realized I only responded to one person.
Maybe Julia, could you just send it around to all of us on the Zoom?
Yes,
By a
Thank you,
separate
will
Jonathan.
do.
Yeah, okay. That would be terrific. Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone. Thank you so